Flooding continues in India, officials confirming at least 88 people have died and scores are injured, with the latest fatalities coming out of the Himachal Pradesh state. The region is more than 300 miles north of New Delhi. 12 people have died in Uttar Pradesh state, 1 person in New Delhi, and 4 were killed in the Indian-controlled section of Kashmir. Authorities using helicopters to rescue nearly 300 people, mostly tourists, who were stranded in the Chandatal area in Himachal Pradesh state since the weekend. Meanwhile, Israeli Foreign Ministry officials say 185 Israelis in India are still unaccounted for as heavy flooding continues in the north of the country. So for the latest update, we welcome columnist Ektar Kumar in New Delhi. Ektar, thank you so much for speaking to us on this day. We are seeing horrific footage of cars and buses and bridges and houses being swept away. Give us an idea of the scale of the devastation in the northern parts of India right now.
Right, is huge, Benita. Like you mentioned, I mean, we're all, over the last couple of days, we've been seeing those images and it just seems almost unreal. You mentioned the death toll, it seems to be rising every day. Thousands have been displaced, and the areas where the flooding is taking place are typically very areas, it's summer months, tourism is at its peak. So you've had hundreds of people who are stranded. The capital of India, Delhi itself, today, there was reports of Yamuna, the river, kind of breaching the danger mark. It's flowing over 3 meters over. Parts of the capital are submerged. I mean, it's almost unreal, when we see video footage of what's taking place. It looks like a river. It's actually a road. So goods are being damaged. Life is impacted. There are people, thousands of them, who are living in shelters. Schools are shut. And it's not just there will be an aftermath to this as well, right?
Sure.
Vegetable prices are going up because drinking water is becoming an issue. So, yes, I mean, the scale is huge and we're trying to cope the last couple of days.
And talking of trying to cope, authorities have moved nearly 30,000 people to shelters and relief camps. What kinds of contingency plans are in place, and are authorities equipped to deal with the rescue efforts, this scale of rescue efforts?
Yes, Benita. In fact, planning for the monsoons happens weeks in advance. So we have a disaster management team in place who are actually very effective. We've seen them do brilliant work in cyclonic situations in eastern parts of India. There was a time when hundreds were used to die, and now that number has significantly come down. So work on this really starts months in advance in anticipation of the monsoons. As we speak, the ministers are consulting with various experts to see what are the next steps. Currently, I think the focus, of course, is how to get people, evacuate them to safety, how to get them water, how to get them medicine, how to kind of have the city. I mean, when I'm talking about Delhi, it's the capital, it cannot come to a standstill. So, on several levels, there is a plan that is in place. Drinking water is especially becoming critical because 3 water treatment plants have been submerged, they're impacted. So at every level, whether it's water, whether it's safety, whether it's traffic, I mean, you're seeing like you've seen footages of the buses, right, being submerged, cars kind of floating.
Unbelievable footage, really frightening. And as you say, so many concerns all at the same time. Israeli officials are in touch there in India with officials on the ground. The Deputy Ambassador Ohad Nakashkaner has been touring the disaster areas in a helicopter. Any updates on the number of Israelis impacted so far by this flooding? What can you tell us?
My number is the same as yours. You mentioned 185. So there are tourists who are unaccounted for. Israel, typically, we see about 40,000 tourists from Israel come to India every year. And typically, the chosen locations are either Goa, which is safe for the moment, or northern India, which is where Himachal, like you mentioned, right, Manali. And these are places where you have a lot of Israeli backpackers who like to trek and go off in the mountains. So a lot of it is buried under snow. The rivers are in a spate. A number of them are unreachable. But like you mentioned, I believe your officials are also touring.
Right.
There are drone cameras. They've spotted tents, and hopefully over the next couple of hours and maybe a day or so, hopefully that number will come down.
We certainly will be waiting to hear more confirmation. And finally, scientists say the monsoons are becoming more erratic because of climate change and global warming. India's weather agency is forecasting more heavy rains in northern parts in the coming days. What are you hearing on that front? What is expected in the coming days and weeks?
Yes, heavy rain is predicted, is forecasted, and I think all of us are just hoping that it relents a little bit. It just makes life so much easier, for the disaster management team to step in and help. The rivers are flooding in any case, so with additional rain, it'll just get absolutely chaotic. But interesting, Benita, I think, again, all our conversation is usually around what is happening right now. There is an urgency, of course. But I think in the longer term, we need to continue talking about climate change. You're seeing the wettest kind of July that Delhi has ever seen in decades. The river, it's been 45 years. It's every year we see records being broken across the world, not just with India. So I think the longer term conversation that needs to continue is, like you mentioned, on climate change.
Well, we so appreciate you having a conversation with us today. Live from New Delhi, columnist Ekta Kumar, thank you so much for your time and your insight. Thank you, Ekta.